Madness. It was a word wielded as a weapon, used to confine those society wished to forget. In the late 19th century, America's mental asylums were less places of healing and more prisons of suffering, hidden behind iron gates and the cold indifference of the world outside. One woman dared to step inside the darkness and return with the truth. A journalist, a rebel, a force of nature. Her name was Nellie Bly, and in 1887 she walked into hell itself, Blackwell's Island Asylum. Born Elizabeth Cochran in May of 1864, Nellie Bly grew up with a sharp mind and an even sharper sense of justice. Her father's death when she was just 6 left her family struggling, and she learned early that a woman's place in society was often dictated by her ability to conform. But Bly, she refused to conform. At just 21 years old, she fired back at a misogynistic article in the Pittsburgh Dispatch, an anonymous letter brimming with fire. The editor, impressed, offered her a job, and so Nellie Bly was born, not just as a name, but as a symbol. But Bly was no ordinary reporter. She didn't want fluff pieces. She wanted the truth, the raw, brutal, unforgiving truth. And in 1887, the New York World, owned by Joseph Pulitzer, handed her an opportunity to expose the unimaginable horrors inside Blackwell's Island Asylum. She devised a daring plan to become an inmate, to live their nightmare. Bly took a room in a dingy boarding house, playing her part with chilling precision. She ranted, refused to sleep, let her hair become wild and untamed. When the moment was right, she declared that everyone around her was mad. Within days, the police came for her. A judge examined her. Doctors declared her insane. And before she knew it, she was aboard a ferry, sailing toward Blackwell Island, a place of no return. The horror began immediately. The bath. Bly was stripped and shoved into a massive stone tub filled with freezing, murky water. Buckets were dumped over her head, over and over, as she gasped her breath. She watched other women sobbing, their screams ignored as they were scrubbed raw, their skin red and burning. The same towels, damp, filthy, were used for every patient. Then came the food, rotten meat, moldy bread, and water thick with dirt. The smell alone was enough to turn the stomach, but starvation was a crueler punishment. Those who refused to eat were beaten or force-fed like animals. But that was only the beginning. Women were forced to sit unmoving in wooden benches for 12 hours straight, no talking, no shifting, and no relief. If they disobeyed, they were dragged away, their cries swallowed by the walls. Bly watched as a woman was bound in ropes and left in an empty room for hours. Another was struck across the face simply for weeping. One patient, fragile and trembling, whispered to her, "I am not insane. I have been trapped here for years." Bly uncovered a chilling truth. Many of the women inside were not mad at all. Immigrants who didn't speak English, poor women with no family, those who simply didn't fit society's mold, they were thrown into Blackwell's, forgotten, condemned to suffer. Even those who arrived sane, The asylum drove them to madness. The abuse, the terror, the complete loss of control, it shattered them, body and soul. Bly had seen enough. After 10 days, Pulitzer arranged her release. But she was not the same woman who had walked in. Her article set the world ablaze. The public was outraged. A grand jury launched an investigation, and though the asylum tried to clean up its act before the inspectors arrived, the damage was done. $1 million in funding was secured. Abusive staff were fired. New protections were put into place. And it was all because one woman refused to stay silent. Nellie Bly was not just a journalist. She was a warrior, a trailblazer, a woman who saw injustice and set the world on fire with the truth. She spent her life shattering expectations, whether it was racing around the world in 72 days, reporting from the front lines of World War I, or running her own business empire. She died in 1922, but her legacy, it never will. Because when the world turns a blind eye to suffering, it takes just one voice, one fearless voice, to tear down the walls. I had to cover the story of Nellie Bly. She made some changes in this world. She was strong. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think. I'll see you next time, guys, right here on Tales Told in the Dark.